All right, welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us today. This is Spotlight on Azure Data Factory. Today we'll be setting up a basic ELT, that's Extract, Load, Transform pipeline, live in Azure Data Factory. My name is Betty Kwan with the marketing team at ProServeIT. Presenting today will be Scott Sugar, Practice Lead for Data and Analytics at ProServeIT. And before we launch into the demo, I'd just like to mention a few items. We ask that you please keep yourself on mute to minimize background noise. Let me just admit another participant here. Oh, we've got a few people joining here. And okay, so as I was saying, I will ask you to put yourself on mute to minimize background noise, but feel free to come off mute if you have a question, or you can also enter your questions in the chat. We are recording this presentation. You will receive a copy along with the presentation deck for your reference. You should see a marketing email within a couple of days. And during the class, if you experience any audio or visual issues, we suggest you drop from the session and join again. And with that, I'll turn it over to Scott.
Thanks, Betty. As Betty mentioned, we're going to do a live demo today, assuming all goes well for us. So there is me. We're going to be doing an Azure Data Factory live demo of setting up an ELT pipeline. Just to give a bit of context into what we're going to be doing today. So I don't know if anyone was here in last year's semester number 1 for data, but what we discussed was a theoretical Apple sales process, and this would be the database from the source system. That 3NF at the top is third normal form, which is a way of setting up a database to minimize duplication and make writing data to the database really fast. And that's what's typically used in transactional systems. So if you had a POS system or something like that, it's probably close to, if not using the third normal form, where everything's nice and divided up. But this kind of data structure is not ideal, and this is what we went over in one of the classes last year, is that this data structure is not ideal for reporting purposes, because if you wanted to see Apple sales by country, as an example, what country the customer was in, as an example, you'd be joining from invoice line here to invoice head. Then you'd be joining to customer, then to address, then to city, province, country. You're doing about 7 joins to get that kind of data. So the better way is to transform your data in the data warehouse to get yourself to a dimensional model. Now, there's a bit more data duplication in a dimensional model, but this is much cleaner for reporting purposes. Now, if I want to look at sales by customer country, I can quickly and easily drag and drop those 2 fields, and now we've got our sales by country. So that's what we went over last year. If people do have questions on that, we can dig into it a bit after. But for now, what I'd like to do is jump over and start going through our live demo. So I'm going to back out of there. And here is Azure Data Factory. Right now, we've got no pipelines. We've got no data sets. The only thing I've really set up here is a link to an Azure Key Vault. Key Vault being a place where we can keep credentials, or in this case, SQL connection strings. The other thing we have pre-set up for us are 2 databases. One is going to be the source for us, and this has those tables that were in that diagram before. And then we've got our target database. We have set up a few things, and this is essentially pretending to be our data warehouse here. This is our source system. This is our data. This one down here is our data warehouse. I have gone ahead and set up a few things in our data warehouse for us just to make this process a little bit easier. You'll notice that we have STG, a copy of the same tables in the source are sitting in the target. And these are what we would call in the data warehousing world, these are staging tables. So this is where we move data to, and it should be, typically it's a one-to-one copy of what's in your source system. And we set them up here. And then we also have our other tables. Now, just to make sure everyone's clear that I'm not cheating here, if I go in and say I want to get everything from that stage address table, it's just oh, I forgot the from. There's nothing in there right now. It's just empty tables in the target. And that's the same, that holds true across all of those staging tables. And it holds true across what will hold our model data once we're done. And if we go back to our source tables, you'll see that these actually do have data in them, ready for us to extract from. So we've got some addresses in there. We've got some invoice headers in there. And again, this is pretty basic database structure, but again, it is aligns to this being the source system and this being what we want to build as our target tables after. Cool. So what we're going to start by doing is we're going to start building out our pipeline to extract data from the source system and land it into the target system. So we're just going to go and hit new pipeline. Now we have a new pipeline here. And we can name our pipeline. We can call it ELT pipeline. Cool. Now we can go, we want to move and transform data. So what we're going to do here is we're just going to use the copy data script. And we can say, let's start by copying over our customer data. That's what we want to copy first. And really what we're looking at here, again, in our last class, we talked about the difference between ETL and ELT. ETL being, the more traditional style, which is you extract data, you transform it, and then you load it to your data warehouse. And then as the cloud came into play and your data warehouses became more powerful and storage became much less of an issue because storage is really cheap nowadays. Now, the more common pattern is ELT, extract, load, then transform. So right here, this copy data step is actually going to be our extract and load, the E and the L. So we're going to extract and load our customer data. So let's go. We're going to check. Oh, we don't have any data sets yet. That's cool. So let's create a new data set. And we're going to grab an Azure SQL. And it's going to say, hey, you got to select the linked service. And what we're trying to do here is create a new table. And we have to create pick a linked service. We don't have any. So let's create a new linked service. And this is going to link us to our source database. So that's what we're doing here. So let's say, change this to source database. Now, because I don't want to start typing in credentials and everything, I've already populated in our Key Vault. I've populated the connection string, the SQL connection string that you get right out of the Azure portal for our source database and for our target database. So the nice thing about doing that is I can go here and say, I want to use my Key Vault. I want to connect to my source SQL server. I can then test my connection. It comes up and says, yeah, connection successful. And now we have a source database. And this, again, is the same database that you're seeing up here. this ADF demo source, and you'll see all these tables available to me right there. So again, we said we wanted to do customer, so let's grab customer first. And we're actually going to name this data set source customer. And we're going to hit OK. All right, so now we've got our source customer data set. It's a table that we were connecting to. We can go and actually preview the data coming out of there. You can see, hey, we've got 3 customers in there. There's their customer number, their customer name, and their address ID. If we go over back to here, it's the same data. So you can see, okay, our preview data is looking good. So next step, that's the source of the data. Now we want to sync that data. And again, we're going to go in here. We don't want to sync it back to the source. That wouldn't make any sense. So let's create a new data set. And again, we're going to Azure SQL, continue. Link service, well, we don't want to send it to the source database. We want to send it to the target database. So we're going to do the same thing again. I'm just going to call this data warehouse. And we're going to select our Azure Key Vault. We're going to say we want that data warehouse connection string. We can test our connection here. Connection successful, and create. So this is now connecting us to this database down here, our target. And again, if we're looking at this database and we do the staging customer and we select bar from stg.customer, it's empty right now. So let's go and say stg.customer is going to be our target. And let's go name this target customer. We just hit OK there. And so now we have a source, we have a sync, our target. I'm going to throw in a little pre-copy script here. What this pre-copy script does is it runs a script against the target just prior to copying the data over. And because what we're doing here is really, it's not incremental, we're just removing, we're basically flushing the target and then reloading it from the source. So I'm just going to make sure that that actually happens. So we're going to truncate table stage.customer. And I'm going to save this. And with that in place, we can start to see, does this work? And we can say, you know, is this extract and load from our source to our sync going to work as we expect it to? So we can just hit the debug button. The debug button is going to run this activity here for us. The output is going to show up here. And Betty, if you, okay.
Thank you,
so,
Scott.
No worries. So basically what we're doing is building out this one activity here. We can see now in the output area that this ran successfully. We can actually dig in and look at, hey, look at our glasses to see what actually happened. We read 3 rows from the source database. We wrote 3 rows to the target database. It took about 5 seconds to queue that up, and it took about 1 second to actually run. And I purposely made this data set very small, these data sets, all of them very small, so that way this stuff happens quickly. But just to give you an idea of scale, we do have data factory pipelines for clients that are processing up to, I think the biggest one we have right now is 1.3 billion rows. So this thing can, there really isn't a top end limitation on how much data you can put through this. Of course, that 1.3 billion rows, I think right now takes about 30 hours to run. So, you know, as you get super big, and that's 1.3 billion rows on a monthly basis, and yeah, it takes about 30 hours to run that one. But for the most part, if you can build an incremental pipeline, they do run pretty quickly. So now that we have that done, I can jump over to our, again, this is our target database. And before Stage Customer had nothing, now it is loaded with the same data that's in DBO Customer from our source database. So that moved the data over. Now, instead of having to build this out each time, we can clone this guy. Say, okay, I just want to clone him. I want to do my address table now. So let's see. Let's go extract and load address. So my source is now going to be, and I've got to do a new one here. But there's going to be a few less steps for us. So we've got our Azure SQL database. We've already got our source database built now, so we don't have to do that part again. And we can call this address. We can go in here and say DBO address. We can preview it. Cool, we've got all our addresses there. And for our sync, we create a new one, Azure SQL. And this is going to be our target, our data warehouse. Call this target address. And our table name will be that stage address. And we can save that. So now we've got another one that will go from our source address to our target address. Got to make sure we update this pre-copy script. You can save this, and now you'll notice these two things are now independent units, and you could potentially leave them as independent units, or what you can do is say, I want this one to run first, then I want this one to run after this one's successful. And that's what these little icons here are. So I can say, this is what I want to happen on success. This is what I want to happen on fail. This is what I want to happen when it completes, whether it's a success or a fail. And I'm going to go and say, you know what, on success, assuming this customer load ran properly, now I want you to get the address out. And I'm going to rip through a couple more of these real quick, just to get to our first transform step. So we're going to do a new one. We're going to get Azure SQL. And we're going to go source city, source table name, DBO city. Grab that, change that, sync, new, Azure SQL. We call this target, city, data warehouse, city. Can link that up now. Now, in reality, I could keep going and build out the pipelines for all of these. And then what I do at the end, and again, I've in our target data warehouse, I have already built out some stored procedures. And these stored procedures will create our, will populate these tables here, the customer, the product dimension, sorry, the customer dimension, the product dimension, the sales measures dimension, and the store dimension. And if we go back to this here, that's the sales fact. That's the store dimension, the customer dimension, and the product dimension. To give you an idea, if we look at our stored procedures here, really all I'm doing for product, I'm just taking that staging product table and then I'm merging it into the DBO product dimension. I'm taking if we go up to customer, this stored procedure here, I'm just grabbing all of all the data I need for that to build out that customer dimension, and then I'm merging it into the customer table, the DBO customer table. To try and like a good TV show chef, I kind of already have a lot of this built out. Before I do that, the next step would be to bring in that stored procedure and say, okay, here's the stored procedure I want to run. I'm going to run it on the data warehouse. And I have my list of stored procedures that I can then run. Build out that DBO customer, I could build up my customer dimension. Now, to build up my customer dimension, I need customer, I need address, I need city, I need province, and I need country brought in. And probably not going to have enough time to go through all that and do any questions. So yeah, we have a pre-cooked setup here, and it's going to look very similar. I'll walk through it real quick. So here's the pipeline that we were basically building out. A lot of copy data steps, and this is the extract and load for all of those staging tables. And at the end of that, we have our transform steps. So to transform the customer, transform the store, transform the product, transform the sales. So now if I go ahead and debug this one here, and you can look and see, as an example, the customer, pretty much the same thing. We're going from that source SQL database. This one, instead of doing the table, I've actually just written a query to say, select star from that customer, but it's the same thing as what we were doing before to get everything out of that customer table. We're syncing it to that data warehouse as the customer, and you can see we're doing the same thing across all of these. Difference being in the stored procedure area, this is where we're saying, I want you to run that stored procedure against the data warehouse. And once I hit trigger, you start to see that this stuff is coming up now. So that copy data step, invoice line, we copied over 6 rows. Sorry, invoice head, we copied over 6 rows. Invoice line, we copied over 17 rows. And this is just going to keep chugging through all of these to extract and load all of those staging table, extract from these tables here. I'm sorry, extract from these tables here and load them into these staging tables here. Wait just a couple more seconds. We're already at province, so we can see here. Then we'll start to see those stored procedures run. Excuse me. And we're on to country now. That's going to finish in a second or two. Let's see, yeah, it's just 2 rows. It's done already. The transformation of the customer data is already done. Transformation of the store data is now done, and now we're letting the stored procedure run for the transformation of the product. And that's done. So our pipeline just successfully completed. Note that for the stored procedure stuff, you're not going to get the same copy activity. You're just going to see, hey, that stored procedure ran. This is how long it took. This is how much, you might end up paying for that. And here's the stored procedure that we actually called for that. So with that done, we can now jump back to our target database, and we can look at our model data. So now we have our customer table filled in, customer dimension filled in. We've got our product dimension filled in. We've got our sales measures filled in. And this is our invoice number, the invoice line number, which customer, which store, which product, which, and then the actual measures. So 10 to 10, 0 discount for everyone. Now that that is done, the last thing I've done here is just put together a quick Power BI report that shows, hey, here's those same tables we were just looking at. Here's how they relate together at the Power BI level, which is pretty much the same as what you're seeing here. Store, customer, product. And right now, the report is showing nothing because before the database was empty. I can now go refresh this. It's going to reach into that data warehouse. And we have a report starting to be built to show us, here's our sales by customer, here's our sales by product description, although I think I spelled description wrong. Then we've got our total sales by month and day. So that's kind of a walkthrough of what this all looks like. Again, very basic pipeline. In the data warehousing world, in the data factory world, there is a lot of stuff that you can do. These data flows allow you to do, big data transformations directly in Data Factory. There's a whole bunch of Synapse related things which allow you to run notebooks. And if you got questions, I can answer those. Databricks, again, similar to Synapse, you can run notebooks and things. In the general area, there's a lot of stuff here that allows you to run those stored procedures that you saw. It allows you to look up data. It allows you to run SQL scripts against machines. It allows you to reach into web APIs to retrieve data, and then allows you to also run iterations and conditionals. So you could do filtering steps. You can do a for each loop. So if you grab 30 rows and you need to use those 30 rows to do something else, you could grab those 30 rows in a lookup statement and then run those through a for each to do some action for each of those. You can do if conditions to see, hey, has any data changed on this table? If yes, let's go and update it. If no, let's not do anything. There's stuff like that. Switch statements, which are just bigger if statements, essentially. And then until loops, which are similar to for loops, is just that you don't know necessarily when something is going to end. And when you're dealing with APIs, there actually already is some powerful tools to do pagination of APIs directly in Data Factory, but you can also do it yourself with until loops and things like that. Some new stuff, Power Query. If you look at what we're doing in Power BI Desktop, this transform data where you can go and make changes to the underlying data. This is called Power Query, and I could go and say, as an example, I could go and say, hey, my invoice date, you know what? I don't want the date times. I want just the dates. So I can change this to just a date. Now I've got it just as a date because I don't care about what time of day it's happening, as an example. Or I could split it and do one date, one time. So those steps that I'm doing here in Power Query, nowadays you can do that all directly in in Azure Data Factory. So again, it's getting very powerful. They just released this change data capture feature, which allows you to do real-time streaming out of source systems. So lots of cool stuff there. So that's really what I've got for today. Any questions before I finish through this slide deck?
No questions in the chat.
No hands up or anything?
Nope. We're good.
Cool. So briefly, for the data world, we've got our maturity matrix. Yellow appears is kind of the data maturity matrix. This is where we see, this is where we look at as we're doing discovery work with clients to figure out where they sit. So that level one, kind of a laggard state. There's a lot of spreadsheet reporting with complex Excel formulas. It's difficult, there's a lot of manual cut and paste. So people are cutting stuff out of a system and pasting it into Excel or copy paste. It's difficult to integrate data from multiple sources. And then there's a dependency on the key individuals for the knowledge. And where we like to take clients into that level two is let's figure out what that baseline report set looks like. Automated data retrieval and data refresh using Data Factory. And one thing I didn't show here is that you can apply triggers to these and say, I want a new trigger. I want this pipeline to run automatically. And I could do it every 15 minutes. I could do it every day, once a day. I could do it once a week on Mondays or on Saturdays. I could do it, or on Mondays and Saturdays. I could do it once a month on the 10th of each month. So you get lots of options, and you can tell it what time you want it to run, 1 a.m. So once you put that in place, then this thing's just going to run for you every day, go through and do that same set of steps. And then if your source system updates, you have more full sales, that will end up reflecting in your data warehouse, which then your reports are built off. So that's, that automated data retrieval and data refresh. And one thing I didn't show here today, because there was just not enough time, is integration of multiple data sources. And the idea being, when you have staging tables from different systems, and typically our team will denote, hey, there's a staging table, and it'll be STG underscore CRM, STG underscore ERP, to say, okay, this is coming, staging table's coming from the CRM, the staging table's coming from the ERP. And then your stored procedures are then able to join those data sets together, assuming there's some field that you can do that join on. But that's integration of multiple data sources. So that's kind of that level two area where we like to take clients. And then as we continue to work with them, we start looking at, okay, what are external data sources that are going to be valuable? What kind of artificial intelligence, machine learning can we layer on, and start looking at mobile dashboards and scorecards. If people have questions about any of that, I can dive into stories and stuff. I just not sure if we have enough time today. Customer journey. Well, the way we work with our clients is we do a discovery. That's step one. That's figuring out that data maturity level, looking at current data practices, and building an implementation plan to level up. And then with that implementation plan, understanding costs and the return on investment. The level up, again, that's going to help you integrate data from multiple sources, do that automated retrieval, refresh, and build out that foundational data infrastructure. Like I said, we have clients now that are using Data Factory to ingest billions of rows of data. And that's one of the pieces of that foundational data infrastructure.
We have a question, Scott.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Sure. No, okay.
Iris is asking, can you compare Data Factory with Databrick?
Yeah. Yes. So Data Factory and Databricks, in my opinion, they go together. So what Databricks is not great at is extracting data from a source system. Databricks is very good at ingesting data from a data lake. They have a function called autoloader that will watch a specific folder in your data lake to pull data into Databricks, where you can start working with that data in a variety of languages. In the Databricks world, they typically want you to move data through the medallion architecture, which is bronze, silver, gold tables. Essentially, bronze is very similar to what I was showing you with staging tables. So when I say those two products go together, what I mean is what we do with our clients when they want that data lakehouse architecture, which is what Databricks is really good at, is Data Factory retrieves the data from the source systems, whether that's a SQL database, a SAS APIs, a file, anything, retrieves that data from where it lives and puts it into the data lake, into an organized spot in the data lake. Once it lands in the data lake, Databricks then picks up that data from the data lake. You can then build your notebooks to do that bronze, silver, gold level transformations. And then Power BI can either connect direct into Databricks through their SQL endpoints, or what we do often with our clients is have a Synapse serverless SQL pool that connects into Databricks connects into the tables that Databricks is building to present to reporting. I know I went probably way too technical there, but essentially the way I would look at it is data in that setup, your data factory becomes your extract and load. Databricks becomes your transform. So instead of you having to write these stored procedures as your transform in the data warehouse, you wouldn't have the data warehouse anymore. You would have Databricks, and you would be writing notebooks that does this stuff. And in Databricks, your notebooks, you can actually write merge statements. You can write CTEs, which is what this is, a common table expression. So you can do all of this stuff in Databricks in SQL if you want, or if you have developers that are more comfortable in Python, they can do it there. So again, Data Factory is your extract and load. Databricks is your transform. Cool. I think we're a bit over time, Betty. I've got to drop off in a sec.
Yes, no other questions right now, Scott.
Cool. All right. Sounds good.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us, everyone, and have a great day.
Thank you.
Thanks for a great session, Scott.
Much appreciated your insight.